Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We are live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that is the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does, that also makes sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get their notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, please do me a favor and yourself a favor by hitting that subscribe button, as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, but absolutely most importantly, please make sure you're following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And that way, you will for sure always get your notifications. Okay, like my man Papa Onaya Shelley, you know it's real when the Telegram notification hits. That means I'm going to pop up within about 60 seconds or less. So now, excuse me, with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's show, right? Let's get into today's show. And shout out to everybody who's jumping in the chat early, right? Let's get the show started. It's recall season, ladies and gentlemen. It is definitely recall season. And it appears that DNC mayors and governors across the country are definitely being put on notice. Now, yesterday, we discussed Brandon Johnson and the possibility, the very strong possibility of him being recalled, because on the state level down in Springfield, Illinois, a bill was introduced to the General Assembly, which would put in motion the ability for the citizens of Chicago to be able to recall Brandon Johnson if the law passes on the state level. As of right now, there's nothing that the citizens of Chicago can do. They're stuck with Brandon Johnson until the next election. But once again, it appears that the political will is there to get this bill passed on the state level in Illinois, given the fact that Brandon Johnson has a strained relationship with the governor of Illinois. And as it pertains to the state officials overall, his administration seemingly has zero relationship with them, right? And are kind of on bad terms with them. And you couple that with the fact that in the city of Chicago, you know, Brandon Johnson has an approval rating of 15%, which is beyond atrocious. Everything is right for this bill to finally pass. And it's a bill that has been introduced to the General Assembly every year since 2015. But it appears once again, everything is there for it to finally pass, just to get Brandon Johnson out of his seat. Now, what's interesting about this is that Brandon Johnson was asked about the legislation that was introduced in the General Assembly to recall him, essentially, right? He was asked about this and how he felt about it. And in typical Brandon Johnson fashion, he started trolling. If you remember yesterday's stream, we went through a series of videos in which Brandon Johnson would be asked directly how he feels about being so unpopular in Chicago. And with his approval rating being 15%, anytime he would answer the question, he would literally begin to troll and would say complete foolishness like, well, maybe it's because I'm a middle child. And maybe it's because I'm a Bears fan. By the way, do you know that the Bears are undefeated in 2025? This is literally his answer when you ask him about the fact that he is the most unpopular mayor probably in the history of Chicago. And you're going to listen to him do this again. He's literally getting ready to troll when they ask him how he feels about the legislation that was introduced down in Springfield concerning recalling him in Chicago. Let's listen to this right now.
Mr. Mayor, two Illinois state legislators have introduced a bill calling for a speed up of the recall process. Can you tell us what you make of that, and if you think projects like this one speak to anything about your relationship with Springfield, with Washington, and the ability to carry forward?
Well, you know, look, as far as, you know, people introducing legislation, that's their job to do that. I remember when I first started working for State Senator Don Harmon, there was a piece of legislation to declare popcorn to be the state snack. It won, by the way, and it passed unanimously. You know, look, I know
He's trolling. this is why I said, and I know a lot of people, because I get it. You know, we like to say, oh, you're incompetent, stupid, whatever. Brandon Johnson, is he incompetent? Yes, he is, right? But to a degree, he's competent enough. Brandon Johnson is competent enough. This man is giving the biggest FU and middle finger to the citizens of Chicago every time you ask him about this stuff, because he literally trolls you by saying silly stuff like this. I mean, you know, they introduce legislation all the time. I remember when I was working for some people on the state level, you know, I introduced legislation about, you know, popping popcorn, and it passed unanimously. You know what I mean? I guess we love popcorn in Chicago. Next. This guy is a douchebag, to say the very least, because he knows he's going to walk away a millionaire once this is all over with. Now, I'm not going to get into all that right now, because I've done that a bunch of times over, but I just want to play this through all the way, and then we're going to carry on.
Mr. Mayor, two Illinois state legislators have introduced a bill calling for a speed up of the recall process. Can you tell us what you make of that, and if you think projects like this one speak to anything about your relationship with Springfield, with Washington, and the ability to carry forward?
Well, you know, look, as far as, you know, people introducing legislation, that's their job to do that. I remember when I first started working for State Senator Don Harmon, there was a piece of legislation to declare popcorn to be the state snack. It won, by the way, and it passed unanimously. You know, look, I know one of the individuals. He's a true champion, a West Sider, Representative LaShawn Ford. Grateful for his leadership in Springfield that allowed us to continue a conversation in the 104th General Assembly, to have substantive conversations around how the city of Chicago can participate as a whole in all discussions. As far as my relationships, again, you know, my first job, my political start was with State Senator Don Harmon. In fact, I met Robin Kelly when she was a state rep, because I was the chief of staff to State Representative, former alderperson Deborah Graham. You know, Senator Collins and I were on the front line along Michigan Avenue protesting against the Emanuel administration for covering up the video of the brutal killing of Laquan McDonald. Speaker Welch and I supported Speaker Welch when he was running for state rep, and the other speaker.
I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry. Now he's just rambling. There's only like 20 seconds left, but it's too much. You get the point. You get the point. And the point is that he doesn't care. He doesn't care, right? He's exploited enough loopholes within the system that this man's going to be facing an early retirement, to which he will be retiring with a pension between $3 to $5 million, right? So he could care less. He's just going to troll you into oblivion unless you're able to recall him. I want to get into this very quickly too. I just want you to see how much Brandon Johnson is digging the city into a hole. Chicago suffers credit downgrade following agency warning over Mayor Brandon Johnson's 2025 budget. I just want to go through like about 4 paragraphs very quickly, because with this guy in charge, man, I mean, Chicago is cooked. Chicago is cooked. It is very unfortunate. And for those of you who don't know, I'm from Chicago originally. I live in LA now, but I was born and raised in Chicago. The article reads, ratings agency S&P downgraded the city of Chicago's general obligation debt late Monday, citing structural imbalance in the just passed 2025 budget, limited options for new revenue down the line, and lack of willingness among city leadership to cut spending. S&P analyst Scott Nees said in a release that Mayor Brandon Johnson's 2025 budget left a sizable structural budgetary imbalance that we expect will make balancing the budget in 2026 and outer years more challenging. He's completely screwed you guys. From 2026 and beyond, putting together a budget is going to be challenging, to say the very least. And if I'm not mistaken, and I don't believe that I am, under Brandon Johnson, Chicago's already $1 billion in the hole. I think they have a $1 billion deficit, $1 billion in the hole under Brandon Johnson. Now, the governor, J.B. Pritzker, responded to this. Governor Pritzker reacted with concern to the downgrade at an unrelated news conference Wednesday morning. Governor Pritzker stated, I know that the city wants to do the right thing and is challenged sometimes to get there, but it's a problem, no doubt, just in terms of what taxpayers will end up having to pay for the city to borrow money, Pritzker said. You guys are cooked in Chicago, man. Under Brandon Johnson's leadership, you guys are cooked, to say the very least. But Brandon Johnson isn't the only person who's on notice, right? He's not the only one. The mayor of Denver is on notice too. Denver mayor faces aerial attack ad recall effort over migrant policy. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's another jab at Denver Mayor Mike Johnston. A sky banner reading "Mike Johnston loves crime" was seen flying over Denver on Monday, December 2nd. The company behind the flight, Dragonfly Banners, says it was contracted by, said it was contracted by an aerial messaging broker on behalf of an anonymous client. However, the banner shares phrasing with a recall campaign of a similar name, MikeJohnstonLovesCrime.com, which is collecting petition signatures in an attempt to oust the mayor. Now, recently, the mayor, Mike Johnston, in Denver, he was doing a press conference, I believe it was in downtown Denver, and got heckled in the middle of it concerning the situation of crime that's happening over there, right? And I want to play that clip for you right now. Like I said, these guys are definitely on notice.
I saw you at the parade.
Let me rewind it back from the beginning.
Yeah, I saw you at the parade, you coward mayor. Fucking, this is your fault! Crime-loving Democrats are burning this city down! City's burning! People are being victims!
I'm sorry, Colette, can you repeat the question?
Crime under Democrats are causing the city to burn down. I want to play that one more time.
Yeah, I saw you at the parade, you coward mayor. Fucking, this is your fault! Crime-loving Democrats are burning this city down! City's burning! People are being victims!
I'm sorry, Colette, can you repeat the question?
It's getting to the point where it's seeming like these guys can't even walk around in the cities that they're supposed to be running. And as it pertains to crime in Denver, which people are upset about, it indeed is going up. I just want to bring up an article real quick to highlight that point and why that individual is so mad and why you see a recall petition has been put out against Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, right? While the city government is applauding a downward trend in some violent crimes, overall crime in the city is still significantly up over the past decade. According to data from the Denver Police Department, overall violent crime throughout the city in 2024 was up slightly from 2023. While almost all crimes saw a significant spike in 2022, and some 2024 numbers are down from that spike, many continue to be higher than in years prior of 2022. This is why all these guys are on notice. These DNC mayors and governors are completely destroying these cities and state. And when you're talking about destroying cities and states, currently at this moment in time, no one is destroying a city and state as much as Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom are doing here, right? Because these two are most likely, definitely going to be facing recalls. Gavin Newsom recall process could start this week with Karen Bass next. Two of the most prominent California Democrats, Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, are in the biggest fight of their political lives over the fallout from the response to the wildfires that have engulfed the greater Los Angeles area. Critics urge that officials not only fumbled the response to the blaze, but were ill prepared for the inferno to begin with hydrants running dry and at least one state reservoir sitting empty, bone dry, amid an unusually hot, dry, and windy fire season in Southern California. The criticisms being lodged at the governor and mayor, including from members of their own political base of support in deep blue LA, combined with the California's impeachment, combined with the California, here we go. I haven't fumbled like this in a while. Combined with California's penchant for recalling politicians who have fallen out of favor with the electorate, has led murmurs from Sacramento to Beverly Hills about whether either Bass or Newsom will retain their jobs once the fires are controlled. What I want to do next is that I want to get into this clip here, right, as we're rounding things out, because recently CNN put a news story out, right, in regards to everything that we've been speaking on over the past, I guess you could say, week and a half now, right, since the fire broke out. What we were told was once misinformation and disinformation, right, by Gavin Newsom. Now CNN is being forced to admit, because for them not to admit this stuff concerning how horrible of a job and incompetent Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass is, for them to not admit this stuff just highlights why so many people are turning their back on the mainstream press in the first place, right? When people like me are on YouTube literally telling the whole truth, and you have folks like Gavin Newsom in meetings with Joe Biden telling him that he needs to censor what's going on social media, essentially because the truth is getting out, which they call misinformation. Once again, this is forcing the hand of mainstream media to have to say something, because at this point, with all the leaked memos coming out by whistleblowers within LAFD and whatnot, it just makes them look a little too crazy to pretend like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass are not the ones at fault. So let's get into this CNN clip now as we prepare to kind of round everything out.
Not long before deadly wildfires broke out in Los Angeles, firefighters were sounding the alarm about major staffing shortfalls inside the city's fire department. Our senior investigative correspondent, Kyung La, digging into the story for us. Kyung, a new CNN analysis backs up those concerns about staffing. Tell us more.
You know, we've heard sort of the back and forth about fire budgets involving the current mayor, but this is an issue that precedes this mayor. This is years in the making. The fire department has warned of dire consequences, saying that they need more money, they need more firefighters, and they warned of this as recently as last month. At that commission meeting, you said, it's dire, someone will die.
It's eerie listening to your words, because that's what occurred. So it's, let me just take a minute, sorry.
Fire Captain Freddie Escobar,
You're not supposed to make me cry.
35-year veteran of the Los Angeles Fire Department, wishes he'd been wrong, and this had not happened. For years, the LAFD union president warned that a disaster like the Palisades fire could happen. And while the cataclysmic weather conditions were historic, Escobar also blamed something predictable that hurt the firefight: money.
This is a woefully understaffed fire department. We either going to have a fire department that's going to reflect 2025, or we're going to have a fire department that's going to reflect the 1960s.
A CNN analysis shows out of the 10 biggest cities in the nation, Los Angeles ranks 9th when it comes to the number of firefighters per resident. And it shows millions of dollars in rescue equipment is just sitting in a lot, unused, because the fire department can't afford to hire the mechanics to repair it. LA's fire chief said in a recent memo the fire department's staffing levels were half the size of what they should be.
And before I let him say what he's getting ready to say, once again, I always have to remind you guys that in the midst of the budget cuts that Karen Bass already put on LAFD, she wanted to take another $49 million, which would have resulted in closing down 16 additional fire stations. That is crazy.
If we cut one position, if we close one station, if we close one resource, the residents of Los Angeles are going to pay the ultimate sacrifice, and someone will die.
Just last month, fire personnel packed an LA Fire Commission meeting, begging the city to rethink the budget.
These cuts came at exactly the wrong time, with calls for services at an all-time high and our firefighters at their breaking point.
They were literally begging for help. And that's what throws me when I see people specifically that want to throw the cape on for Karen Bass, and they're saying, oh, it's just because she's a black woman and all this kind of stuff. No. She's the mayor of Los Angeles, and she's the one that's in charge of all of this budget cutting. This budget cutting is coming at her request, but they're begging for her to stop. They're begging for her to fund them, to give them more money. And Karen Bass said, no, I don't have time for that. I'm about to take a trip to Ghana. Peace out. Ridiculous.
Straining our department's resources beyond the brink, and we cannot continue on this path.
City Councilwoman Tracy Park was there too.
There are large swaths of the city with no emergency response resources available.
Are we going to be having the same conversation next year and the year after?
We can't. We can't. I think that people are rightly upset, not only that this happened, but there is a sense that we as local leaders needed to do more for them. I feel like I let them down. And I've been screaming about it from the day I came in. And so I think there is an obligation of us to not let this be for nothing. I think this has to be the wake-up call.
Now, like she said, is this a conversation that we're going to be having, next year and the year after that and the year after that? Well, the answer to that question is yes. Is yes. You're going to keep, if Gavin Newsom is still running California and Karen Bass is still running LA, you're going to have this conversation again next year and the year after that and the year after that and the year after that and the year after that. You're going to keep having these conversations until you get these folks out of here. But, even more importantly, also too, man, getting these guys out of here and recalling them, it doesn't mean anything if you're going to replace them with more DNC lunatics. It really doesn't mean anything. And Chicago is the perfect example of this. I remember when Lori Lightfoot was in office, people seemingly, I won't say they hate her they didn't hate her like they hate Brandon Johnson, right? But she was disliked, to say the very least. People really disliked Lori Lightfoot, and you would think to yourself, there's no way you can do worse than Lori Lightfoot, right? In comes Brandon Johnson. So it can get worse. Chicago shows that, yes, it can get worse. You can get rid of a mayor who you think is a huge problem and replace that mayor with someone significantly worse. And that's what happened in Chicago. And if you're just going to vote in more DNC lunatics, you'll just end up replacing Gavin Newsom with a Brandon Johnson type. Karen Bass with a Brandon Johnson type. In Denver, you'll be replacing Mike Johnston with a Brandon Johnson type. You know what I mean? It's up to the people to actually make different choices and not be scared to make different choices. But that's yet to be seen. We'll see how this all unfolds and pan out. But I'm really hoping that a recall season definitely gets these guys out of here, especially in Chicago. I can't stand Brandon Johnson. He's so arrogant. in his trolling whenever he's asked about this kind of stuff. I'm really hoping on a state level in Illinois, they get that bill passed through, the recall bill, and that they're able to get Brandon Johnson out of Chicago. I really dislike him. But with all that being said, that does it for today's show. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today, man. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. And also don't forget to follow me on Telegram. That is extremely important to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. Okay? You don't have to worry about not getting your notifications if you're following me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Let's get to the super chats right now because I have to give my thank yous. This show does not exist without everyone's support. Shout out to my man Saul, who came through as he always does. He says, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are waiting on 5 p.m. to hit. Yeah, I know they can't wait to get out the White House themselves. You know, they're like, yeah, we're finished and we're done. Good luck. And a matter of fact, we're going to lay down a few traps for Trump so that he can be frustrated on his way in as we leave out to make things more difficult for him than it needs to be. Shout out to my man Benton Jr. Bay coming through as he always does. He said, people need to learn. Stop voting for these Democrats who hate them. I don't know what it's going to take for people to learn and figure that out, man. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take, but hopefully we're getting to some sort of point of awakening where they understand this for the truth that it is. Shout out to my man Saul for running it back again. He said props to the ASL guy for translating the protester. yeah, that's what he was doing. It took me a while because when the protester, the guy yelling at Mike Johnston, was saying what he was saying, and the ASL guy, he was still going. It took me a while to process. I'm like, wait a minute, he's translating the guy heckling Mike Johnston. Man, shout out to him. You know, shout out to him. He could have easily done the DNC thing and censored that guy for all of those who are deaf and can't hear, in which he just did nothing while the person heckling Mike Johnston was going in. But he did it. He didn't. He translated. He made sure everybody heard it, even those who are deaf. So shout out to him. Shout out to my man Benton Jr. Bay for coming back again. He said, I really believe some of these Democrats truly hate the American people, and they try to hide it. I mean, honestly, on many levels, they're not even trying to hide it. At least in Chicago, you know, Brandon Johnson's not trying to hide it. You know, Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom, yeah, they're doing their best to put up a good face. You know what I mean? They are at least. I can say that they're trying to hide it. I can say they're trying to. I can say the same thing as well for Mike Johnston in Denver, because I've been following him for quite some time now, since the migrant crisis began. Brandon Johnson, on the other hand, he's not trying to hide anything. He just doesn't care. He's just collecting a check and could care less. Shout out to James Mitchell for the super sticker. I appreciate you, James Mitchell. And shout out to Jeff. How do you say that last name? Oh, I'm going to sound so stupid. Manji? Anyways, let me stop. I appreciate you, Jeff. Thank you for the super sticker, bro. You know, when it comes to names, I'm bad with it. But I appreciate the support you all show me, especially my man, Jeff, as well. I appreciate you. Thank you guys for joining me today, man. Once again, as always, hit that like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. And also, Telegram. I cannot beg you guys enough. Please follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. I'll catch you guys later. Peace and have a great afternoon.